people who posted those questions. You'll have your answer right now. For those of you who are just viewing this video, if you have been in a car accident, there's a couple things you should do. Obviously, you can visit his site below the video link, or you can give him a call. In addition, at the end of the video, he's agreed to allow people to post questions related to car accidents, and he's going to get back to you directly online. So all you have to do is post your questions to the YouTube comment section, and he will get back with you with his answers. With that said, John, let's get started. Posting, or I'll give you a couple of questions. We've got the first question here. How long do I have to file a claim on my insurance for a car accident?
Okay, so every state actually is going to have their own statute of limitations laws, and these are the laws that determine how long you actually have to bring an accident claim or an injury claim. What you want to do is talk to an attorney in your own state, so that attorney can kind of give you the information you need. And here in Arizona, to bring a auto accident claim, you have 2 years generally from the date of the accident. So you need to make sure that you contact an attorney. Now there are other times where that statute of limitations can be 1 year, and those are specific circumstances that you would have to know the fact scenario and apply the law. So it's a good idea to at least consult with an attorney before you let that time pass.
Okay, all right. Next question we had is, can I negotiate an accident settlement without hiring an attorney?
Yes, you absolutely can negotiate your settlement. And the reality is that the insurance companies try to settle a claim with people that are involved in an accident as quickly as possible and before they hire an attorney. Oftentimes my clients will come to me and their insurance company only a couple of days after the accident, or the opposing insurance or the adverse company has already sent them a check to settle their claim, even though they had injuries or are in my office telling me that they're still getting treatment. So the reality is that yes, you can settle your own claim. The question of whether it is a good idea, and you may want to at least consult with an attorney, just like I mentioned previously, so that the attorney can at least guide you to what avenues you should be looking at. Remember, all of these cases have different fact scenarios, and there's different laws that apply to different fact scenarios, and you may be missing out on a certain avenue of compensation that you're not aware of. So it's a good idea to at least have a consultation with an attorney. And the reality is a lot of people find that attorneys have the negotiation skills, the know-how to actually settle these claims for larger amounts than what they would be able to do by themselves.
I understand. Okay, that makes sense. Next question we had was, I caused a wreck and was injured. I've missed a lot of work. Is my insurance supposed to cover my time off work?
Okay, in this fact scenario, the person that is asking the question actually caused the accident. And generally, your own insurance policy is not going to cover your expenses if you are the one that was negligent and caused the accident. Usually in your policy, you will have your liability coverage, which actually covers other people's injuries that you caused. So if you injured another party, that covers them so that they don't come after you personally. And the other part of that is that it covers you if someone else injures you and they don't have enough insurance to cover your injuries. And that's uninsured, underinsured. Now there is something called MedPay that's no-fault insurance that people should look into getting in their policy, that if they do have injuries in an accident, even if it is their fault, they still have that money set aside for them that they can use for their medical expenses.
Okay, I've never actually heard of that. That's actually interesting. Okay, and we had another question here was, my insurance company has offered me a settlement for a car accident. I'm happy with the amount they offered, but my friends tell me I need to hire an attorney. If I'm satisfied with my settlement, why should I why should I hire an attorney if I'm going to have to pay out a contingency fee to that attorney?
That's a great question, and the reality is that you don't need to hire an attorney. You can settle your claim if you feel comfortable and confident that the insurance company is giving you a fair amount. What you have to ask yourself is, why not at least consult with an attorney? Because most personal injury attorneys will give you a free consultation. And if you let them know, where you're at, the status of your case, and what the insurance company is offering, they may be able to give you an idea of whether they feel like the insurance company is being fair. If they feel like they are not being fair, or that that there is other avenues that you haven't considered for compensation, it may be beneficial to you to at least pick up the phone. So I always encourage people not to be afraid of an attorney, and just at least call them up and see what their options are. Many times I'm able to let clients know that they have other avenues for compensation, help them look at their case a little bit differently, and they're greatly benefited by that.
So would part of that be able to, for example, and I don't know if you're allowed to do this, but can you tell people, okay, well, in similar cases to like this is kind of the typical settlement, that sort of thing?
Absolutely. Most attorneys are going to know regarding how much damages there were, how much injuries there were, what a typical case like that would settle for. Now, attorneys, though, are typically pretty careful about giving exact figures or even, tight ranges, because, there's a certain amount of unpredictability there with the case. There's no magic book that says this injury and this insurance equals this settlement. But any experienced attorney is going to be able to tell them that, given what they've heard, this sounds like a decent offer, or this sounds like they may be lowballing you on this case, and we may want to look at these other avenues for compensation. There may be other insurance available out there. So there's just a number of issues, and like I said, it's a free consultation, so you have nothing to lose by picking up the phone.
Okay, makes sense. Well, for those of you who posted your questions, hopefully these did answer your questions fully. If you have more, just let us know. Again, for those people just watching the video, if you want to reach out to John, feel free. Also, you can just post your questions below to the YouTube video, and he will get back to you as he has time, but hopefully within 48 hours. Hopefully he'll be able to get back to you. With that said, John, I want to thank you for your time, and thanks again.
Thank you, Ryan. I'll be happy to answer any questions that are posted. Hello, this is John Kelly from the Kelly Law Team. I had a question regarding injuries in a motorcycle accident, and specifically, do I need an attorney if the injuries are minor when you're involved in a motorcycle accident? The answer is likely you want to at least consult with an attorney on these kind of cases. Oftentimes, if the injuries are minor, the property damage on your motorcycle can actually be pretty significant still. Low impact wrecks can cause a lot of damage, especially to some of these custom bikes where you put a lot of money into it, and the insurance companies don't always know how to evaluate those bikes, because they'll take a fair market value of your bike, but they don't take into consideration all the money that you put into it to put the custom wheels on it, or a new paint job, that kind of thing. So an attorney can really step in and help you present that information to the insurance company so that you get a fair valuation of your bike and are not left with, out of pocket a lot of money. The other issue is with soft tissue injuries. Insurance companies oftentimes will try to deny coverage if they don't believe that you had a legitimate injury where they can show on an x-ray that there was a broken bone, or that there was some severe injury there that is very objective. The problem that we see with these is these soft tissue injuries oftentimes will manifest themselves later and will cause a lot of problems for people, whether it be, continuing back pain or sciatic nerve issues or severe headaches and that kind of thing. So you want to be just kind of careful with these cases, and the insurance companies will want to try to settle them fast. So it's a good idea to call for a consultation. I'd be happy to do that and just walk you through the process.
We're with John Kelly with the Kelly Law Team. He's a personal injury attorney in Phoenix, Arizona, and he's agreed to answer some online questions for us. Well, actually, a specific online question, and it was posted, how do I find the best personal injury lawyer?
Ryan, if you've been injured, there's a lot of things that injured people are going through, and it's a very stressful time. They have doctors they're dealing with, medical expenses, their own pain, you know, property damage can be in place or missing work. So it's a very trying time. And finding the right attorney is actually a difficult process and an important one. So I have some tips for people to decide on what attorney to use, and 3 tips that I think will help them through the process. The first is to look at the attorney's reviews online. There's a lot of great websites. Avvo is one of them, AVVO. Google reviews, Yelp reviews. These are all you know, online resources for people to check into attorney, what their reputation is, past clients, that kind of thing. The second thing is to look into their experience. What kind of background do they have? You know, I was a former prosecutor, so I have a lot of trial experience, and I think trial experience is actually something that's relatively rare in the field, and it's a good thing to have for a personal injury attorney, because that attorney can actually take the case to trial and deal with the jury and force the insurance companies to be fair. And the final thing is to just call the attorney and get to know them, have a free consultation with them, make sure you actually talk to the attorney that's going to be handling your case. I always set aside at least 30 minutes for a free consultation, go over all the facts of the case with them, see if your personalities work out together, because there's a lot of attorneys out there and you want to have a good working relationship with them. So I think those are 3 important things for people to look at, Ryan.
All right, well, makes a lot of sense. Thank you for your time. And if, for the people watching, if you have any additional questions, all you need to do is post them in the comments section below, and John's agreed to answer those and get back to you. Thanks again, John.
Thanks, Ryan. Hello, this is John Kelly of the Kelly Law Team. I wanted to talk to you about how motorcycle accidents are different than typical auto accidents when they go to a jury trial. The biggest issue that we see is that oftentimes jurors have a bias and oftentimes do not understand the challenges that motorcycle riders face on the road. So what we do is we make sure in voir dire, which is the initial stage of picking the jurors, we ask the right questions. And questions that are as simple as, have you ever ridden a motorcycle? Does anyone you know ride a motorcycle? Do you understand the mechanics of a motorcycle on the road and what specific challenges they face? These things can give us insight onto whether a juror is going to be a good fit for our jury and whether they're going to understand the physical properties of a motorcycle and how it can affect an accident. Very important to make sure that you have jurors that are not going to go on there and say, I don't like motorcycle riders, they get in my way, they're, you know, I've had bad experiences with them. Those are bad jurors for this kind of case. And especially because motorcycle accidents, they often have very high damages. The injuries are very severe. So that initial stage of picking the juror for the jury is very important.
We're with John Kelly. John Kelly is a personal injury attorney in Phoenix, Arizona. He's agreed to answer some questions related to car accidents. Also, if you have a question, you can just post it in the comment section below and he'll get back to you. With that said, let's go into our first question. First question that was posted is, how long does it take to get paid?
Okay, a very common question, and when you're injured by another party, it only seems fair that you would get compensated promptly. Unfortunately, there's some things that kind of prevent that from happening. Namely, the insurance companies are notorious for trying to withhold their money to pay out. So what you really need is an aggressive attorney, someone who's going to actually call these insurance companies, hold them to their standards, make them evaluate your case, review the records, and make a reasonable offer and settlement within a reasonable time. And at my firm, I do that. I'm very aggressive with my cases. I call the insurance companies, make sure they're doing those things. And typically, after I make a demand, we get the settlement pretty quickly. It's usually within 30 days of making the demand. So that's kind of a typical time.
Okay. Next question was, if I work with your firm, will I work with you or with another attorney?
Yes, I actually handle every case that I take personally. So I don't hand off the case to an inexperienced attorney or paralegal like a lot of firms do. There's a lot of law firms out there, unfortunately, that have kind of a turn and burn mentality where they take on as many cases as they can. They hire inexperienced staff, and they don't get the personal attention that they do at my law firm. When you call my office, you're going to get me, or you'll get my paralegal, Gary, who has 20 years experience doing personal injury work. And I evaluate the case on a case-by-case basis. I talk to my clients. I keep them updated. I staff the case with my paralegal, and I'm available by phone to my clients, which is a huge benefit to them because they don't feel like they're left out of the process, like they can't understand what's going on in their case. And I get a lot of clients that call me, and they're frustrated that their attorney hasn't told them what they're doing on the case, and I just don't get that on my cases.
Okay. All right. The next question we have is, what will you do to ensure that I get compensated as much as possible for my car accident?
Well, that's a very good question. You need to have an attorney that's going to help you build your case. So that means collecting the evidence with you. So, sending in the photographs to the insurance company, getting the right police reports, requesting all the medical records, ensuring that you're getting the treatment that you need to get better, and aggressively pursuing the insurance companies to make sure that they're playing fair. We have a wealth of experience in my firm in doing this, dealing with the different insurance companies, making sure that we're sending the right letters, the right demands, making the right phone calls, and doing these all at the right time to ensure that our clients are getting every dollar that we can for the claim.
All right. Next question we have is, do you ever take car accident cases to trial, or are they all settled?
They're not all settled, but most of them do settle. The reality is that trial is time consuming, it's costly, it's risky, and most clients don't want to go through that process because it takes a long time to get to trial. It costs more money. It's stressful in a time that they're already stressed. So if we can make the insurance companies play fair and make a good offer for settlement, we want to go ahead and take that settlement because we're saving our clients a lot of headaches. And so the number is over 95% of our cases actually do not go to trial. It's a bit benefit to the client. Now, if we do go up against an insurance company that's playing unfair, we do take those cases to trial, and we have you have an attorney that has the trial experience to take those cases to trial. I've done over 20 jury trials, and I've taken these cases to trial, and we can ensure that if that's the case, we'll do that.
Okay. And the final question we had is, will I be charged for someone to review my case?
Well, people are typically pretty nervous about this when they call in. They don't know how attorneys get paid. They worry that just by calling, they may be charged something. The reality is that at my law firm, I'm always going to take the time to evaluate a case. I'm going to sit down with my client, If they want to do it over the phone, they can. They can come into my office for a free consultation. They can bring some documents with them, and I'll take a look at them and determine for them what their best method is moving forward. If it's found out that, it's a good idea to retain counsel, I'll let them know that, I'd be willing to take their case. At that point, we can, put the agreement down in writing. The good news is that I typically do a contingency fee, so the clients still don't pay anything until the actual settlement or award is made. So they don't owe their attorney anything until they actually get the money that compensates them.
Okay, excellent. Well, if you have any additional questions for John, all you need to do is post them in the comments section below. He's agreed to get back to you with answers to those comments. Also, obviously, you can reach out to his office. John, what's the phone number over there?
602-283-4122.
All right. Well, thanks for your time, John.
Thank you, Ryan.
So today we're with John Kelly. John Kelly is a personal injury attorney. He's located in Phoenix, Arizona. And today he's helping us out by answering some questions that were posted online, specifically related to car accidents. If you were in a car accident, some of these questions are pretty broad in scope, so these may be applicable to you. And if you're one of the people that asked questions, obviously you're getting your answer right now. In addition, John has volunteered that at the end of the video, after you watch it, if you have additional questions, you can post them in the comments of YouTube. He's actually going to come back and answer those. So with that said, I'm going to ask some questions directly from the web to John. So John, the first question was from Daryl. He says he was in a wreck 2 months ago with minor injuries. The insurance company is offering to pay him a supplement, which is covering more than his actual expenses. Does he still need an attorney?
Thank you, Ryan, for having me have these questions. As far as Daryl's concerned, I get this question quite often. Someone has been negotiating with the insurance company for any particular amount of time. They may have a settlement offer made, and it may cover all their expenses. So they're wondering, do I need to hire an attorney? One of the considerations they need to have is that insurance companies want to minimize the amount of money that they're paying out. So they're not necessarily going to inform Daryl if there's any other areas of compensation that would be available to him. What isn't mentioned in his question is whether the insurance company had provided any monetary value for his pain and suffering. They haven't taken into consideration whether he missed work from the accident, or what other avenues in his policy he may have, such as medical payments, what we call med pay, or other avenues that may be available to him that the insurance company is, either not necessarily letting him know or informing him of. So one of the things he can do is at least have a consultation. And at the Kelly Law Team, I always sit down with clients, I look at their policy, it's a free consultation, and I give them advice about whether or not they could possibly do better. A lot of times they can, but sometimes I say, look, you got a good settlement here. So, it never is a bad thing to at least talk to an attorney to determine if there's more money out there available.
Okay, well, that makes a lot of sense, actually. Okay, next question was from Janet. She said her car had a blowout and ended up running into a light pole. She said no one was hurt, but she's asking if she can sue the tire manufacturer.
Yeah, so a lawsuit against a tire manufacturer and actually the person that sold the tire to them also could be in play in this. And that's going to be a products liability case, and there would have to be negligence on the part of either the tire manufacturer or the realtor. But the interesting thing is that there wasn't any injuries, so we're talking about property damage only. So, there's also the consideration if there was damage to the vehicle, if it wasn't significant damage, it may be a lot of effort to go after a tire manufacturer to get them to pay for, say it was $1,000 in damage. You may have a hard time pursuing that claim and having the value there. Um, but with any products liability cases, I get these a lot where there are tire defects. And in those cases, a lot of times in truck accidents, we're looking at the manufacturer of the tire. The insurance companies are going to want to say, look, you know, this was a maintenance issue. That tire should have been replaced at a certain amount of, you know, miles. So we have to do a little bit of investigation. But absolutely, anytime there's a wreck, there's always the possibility of a products liability case that kind of goes along with the personal injury case or property damage.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. Next question was from Jim. Said, my wife and I were in a car accident and the insurance company is attempting to negotiate a settlement. Why would I need to pay an attorney?
Right, so kind of along the same lines there. The insurance companies, I've had several cases where the insurance companies will call the injured party immediately, want to get a statement, want to try to settle the claim as soon as they can. The concerns are many there. One, we don't know what the extent of the damages are to the individual, how hurt they are. A lot of people don't realize, but they get in an accident, they feel okay the first day, the next day is when they start really hurting. And they need to be evaluated by someone, a doctor, to determine what the extent of their injuries are before they go and settle the claim. And the underlying thing that I'm kind of talking about already is that these insurance companies, the big insurance companies, they're there to minimize their costs. They have attorneys hired for them to try to prevent people from getting settlements that are, you know, of large monetary sums. So, you know, you think that your insurance company is on your side and trying to keep the process. A lot of times they're trying to get admissions from you, trying to find ways that they can minimize the amount that they're going to, you know, have to pay out. So it's a good idea to at least consult with an attorney to make sure that they're negotiating fairly with you. And from there, you kind of have the decision of whether to hire an attorney or to pursue the settlement.
Okay, all right. Let's see, next one, and you kind of touched on this slightly, but, and I guess this is, Bruce asked, if you handle my case, how long would it take for me to get paid?
Okay, so this is a question that I, believe it or not, get asked a lot. You know, people want to know when they're going to get their money from the accident. And, you know, it's understandable. They're going through a lot at the time. They're injured. They've lost, you know, presumably their vehicle is potentially totaled in the accident, so they need that income to be able to get into another vehicle for transportation just to get to the doctors. And yet alone they need to pay their doctors, some of them. So the settlement actually can take a significant amount of time. You know, if it's minor injuries, you know, we may be talking a couple of months. If it's major injuries, it can be years. And a lot is driven by the actual injuries that an individual has. The good news is that we always make sure that we get providers that would work on a lien basis. And what a lien basis it means is that there's no money out of pocket for the injured party to get that treatment. And then the provider just takes part of the settlement when it comes out. So that can help with that time lag. Once the treatment is done, usually the attorneys can work very quickly to get a settlement at that point. So it's not really on the attorney to determine how long it goes. It's actually the person who's injured to see the extent of their damages. And one concern is if you try to settle the claim too quickly, you're going to sign a release that basically says that you cannot go back after any further claims for injuries and monetary value. So you don't want to settle your claim before you know the extent of your injuries.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. And last question we had here was from Fan. Fan asked, I was hit by a truck last year and ended up in the hospital for 2 weeks. And insurance covered my expenses, excluding my lost time at work. but now I'm having back issues again. Is it possible to get these new expenses covered?
And that kind of also, with Fan, that question dovetails into what I was just talking about with the settling your claim. The big question with hers is, has she negotiated and settled her claim? If she has, it's very likely that she had to sign a document that releases the insurance company from any further liability, which means that she may be out of luck. Now, on the other hand, if she hasn't settled that claim, if it's still an outstanding claim, and the statute of limits hasn't run, which is another issue your attorney can kind of walk you through, then she should be able to get that treatment and make a claim to the insurance company. So it should be available to her depending on what stage she is at through the process.
Okay, and assuming she didn't sign off on anything, I guess. So,
Right.
okay, well, those were the questions that were posted. Like I said, if anyone, if you have been in a car accident or an auto accident, just post your questions below. John has volunteered to answer these. John, is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I'd be available to answer any further questions, any follow-up questions. I'd broadcast again. And Ryan, I appreciate the opportunity to answer the questions of your callers. Thanks.
Thanks. Today we're with John Kelly. John Kelly is a personal injury attorney in Phoenix, Arizona. He's agreed to answer some of the questions we posted online. These questions were directly related to motorcycle accidents. If you're one of those people, he's going to answer your question right now. If alternatively, if you have been in a motorcycle accident, John, you can either one, reach out to John directly, you can give him a call, go to his website, shoot him an email. But he's also agreed to answer some questions directly below this. So if you actually have been in an accident on a motorcycle, just post your questions at the bottom of this video and he's going to get back to you. With that said, John, let me go ahead and start off with the first question from the online user.
Right.
He asked, are the laws different for motorcycles than cars? I guess pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and it's actually a pretty straightforward answer. The cars and motorcycles not only follow the same laws, on the streets, but legally in a personal injury case, they have most of the same laws as each other. So when we're pursuing a personal injury claim, we're dealing with the same statutes. There is no significant difference from being involved with a motor vehicle or a motorcycle legally. There are different norms on the road, which we all know, which come into play, and those can be kind of come out with the factual basis and how it affects comparative fault or fault in general. But generally speaking, they're following the same laws.
Okay, all right, makes total sense. Next question we had was this individual laid down his bike due to a mechanical failure, and he's asking if he can sue the manufacturer.
Okay, so this question, it brings up a lot of different issues. He says he lays down his bike, so I'm assuming that the bike had a mechanical failure that caused him to have a wreck and then be injured because of that. So I'm filling in a little bit of the gaps there. The answer is that yes, you can sue the manufacturer. However, there needs to be an investigation done. And if there is a mechanical failure, we're going to have to find out what happened and what exactly caused that accident. If there is a product on that vehicle or on the motorcycle that had difficulties or failed, it might be a product's liability claim. And a product's liability claim is actually a lawsuit against the dealer or the manufacturer of that motorcycle or the parts manufacturer. So it's a negligence-based claim also, and it's something that you need to talk to a qualified person who is an injury attorney that can kind of guide you in the right direction with those cases, because they can become very complicated.
Okay, all right. Uh, Next question was, I wrecked my bike because there was a motorcycle. I wrecked my motorcycle because there was trash on the highway and I couldn't avoid it. I had some minor injuries and totaled out my bike. Do I have a case?
Yeah, so this is actually a similar case to someone who is involved in a hit and run accident. What happens is someone is injured and it wasn't their fault, it was someone else's fault, but we don't have the other person. So in this case, the other person presumably had some debris that was on the road that caused an accident. There is no person to sue directly in that regard, but most people have in their insurance policy, and if you don't have it, you should look into it, uninsured motorist coverage. And what that is coverage set aside for times when the other party who either injured you doesn't have insurance or not enough insurance, or we don't know who the other party is. And so you actually go and make a claim with your own insurance company, and you get compensation that way. So it is possible to get compensation in that situation. And anyone who finds themselves in that type of situation is definitely going to want to talk to an attorney about that.
Okay. All right. And the last question we had, this one's a little longer, so bear with me. Said my son was recently hit by a truck while on his motorcycle. The driver never saw him, but my son was speeding. The police wrote it up as my son being at fault for the accident. He's facing some fairly serious medical bills. Even though it was his fault, is there any way to recover from any other of the groups or any other group?
Okay. So if I remember, this question has to do with the son was later arrested for driving under the influence. Is this the question?
No, this is not the question. This is the one. He is, he basically, all he's telling us in this one is he was caught speeding and he was at fault for speeding, and the police wrote it up as it being his fault, but now he's seeing if he can actually recover from basically to cover some of his medical bills, even though.
Oh, yes. Okay. So in this question, it was the driver's fault, and he's wondering if he can recover even though he has medical bills, but it wasn't, but the accident was his fault. So this is actually a common question that I get. And there's a police report that wrote this individual up as being at fault for the accident. The police report is hearsay, so it's not all a loss when a police officer writes a citation for an individual and they make the determination that it was that driver's fault. There can be other investigation done to determine if there may be some comparative fault there. And if through an investigation we find out that the other person